IVM.
Welcome to another week on IVM. It's been a great week, and if you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On Geek Fruit this week, Tejas and Dinkar discuss their favorite movie soundtracks. On The Scene and the Unseen, Amit Verma talks to researcher and activist Amit Chandra, and they dissect India's education sector. On Cyrus Says, we have writer and director Anand Sivakumaran, who's hosting a great new show for us called Croc Tales as well. Anand and Cyrus talk about how Anand journeyed from an engineer to a full-time writer. On Simplified, Naren, Chuck, and Shriketh go to the root of the word assassin and twisted an interesting history behind it. This week on Shunyan, we're joined by Sanjay Nath, who is the co-founder and managing partner at Bloom Ventures. We have a really interesting conversation about investing. On Marbles Lost and Found, Zen and Avanti talk to psychotherapist Alicia Halani. And also this week marks the 50th episode of the Pragati podcast. Hosts Hamsini Hariharan and Pawan Srinath sit down to talk about the long, strange trip it's been and also round up some of the recent news. And with that, I'm going to take you on to your shows.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of IVM Likes. I'm Surbhi, and today in the studio we have with us two really cool people again. Cool people one.
Okay, I guess I'm cool person number one. This is Amit, and I am here to recommend stuff.
Cool person two.
Cool person two would be Abbas Momin, fellow producer at IVM.
Awesome. Guys.
That's
today,
a great way to introduce people.
Yeah, because we're all cool and it just makes sense. If it's just the three of us, let's just call each other cool.
All right, so you're cool person number three?
Thank you. Yes, cool person three, I'm Surbhi. And today we're talking about Netflix and not chill, I guess. But today we're talking about how Netflix is dominating the streaming service landscape and dropping so many new originals.
Yep.
So we're recommending some of the great ones that we like, and you might want to check it out. And also in the second hour, we're talking about the new Netflix original, Sacred Games. So stay tuned for that. Abbas, do you want to...
So I'll start. I'm recommending a Netflix sitcom, original sitcom. It's called One Day at a Time. It's actually a revamping of a show by the same name which ran from 1979 to 1984, I think. But it's been revamped. So the original show, when it ran, it had... essentially a white family, which was the focus of the show. This has been revamped with a Spanish family. So it's kind of old-fashioned. So we all know that they do the new episodes for Full House, right? Which I don't like.
I was actually considering recommending that, but
really?
I decided against it.
So I think One Day at a Time is what that Full House reboot should have been. It's way funnier. It's much crispier. It's shot in front of a live audience, so that old world sitcom feel is there. It's a multi-camera sitcom, so you have the laughter tracks. It's in a nutshell, it's three generations of women. So there's the grandmother, there's the mother, and then there's a daughter. And she's a single mother who's a war veteran, and she has her mother is this diva like Spanish woman who wanted to be an actress in a Spanish soap opera but couldn't be. So she comes up with her sassy and overdramatic mannerisms. And then the kid is the teenager who's kind of stuck between her tradition and living a life as an American kid. So every episode they pick up different themes, and in the end, like in the old-fashioned way, they have the kid learns a lesson, and it all comes together, and the mother and grandmother also take something away from it. So 2 seasons are out. It's very funny. It's a traditional sitcom, so there are lots of laughs and a lot of it's cheesy in parts because it's mother-daughter relationships and all of that, but it's a lot of fun to watch. I actually wasn't expecting very much of it. I just put it on one day when I was sleepy, and it turned out to be very funny. Actually,
what year is this based in? Like, is this like a 2018 setup or like a 80s? What is
it's a current setup, yeah.
Okay.
So she's a war veteran from the Iraq War, so it's her aftermath, and now she's working as a nurse in the hospital. So there's that little chemistry between the doctor and her that's running as a subplot as well. So yeah, a lot of funny characters, and it's a fun show overall.
Okay, what's it called again?
One Day at a Time.
One Day at a Time.
And it's based on a show from the same name from the 80s.
From the 80s, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think I remember seeing that show in the 80s.
It wasn't that big, but it was kind of okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my recommendation. Netflix original.
Thank you, Abbas. Moving on to cool person number one.
So what I realized when we were talking about this is that I actually don't watch. I watch a lot of stuff on Netflix, but
Right.
most of what I watch is actually not what would be called "quote unquote" a Netflix original, right? So I wind up watching a lot of. Like I watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Netflix, and you know, I mean, like all these kinds of shows which have been elsewhere,
Right.
and then have come to Netflix. That's kind of where I've even movies and stuff like that. I wind up watching a lot of movies and stuff like that on Netflix. So I was looking through all the originals, and I mean, like I love a lot of the stand-up specials, but the one show that I really enjoyed was Altered Carbon.
Okay.
So I'm a big sci-fi fantasy kind of. Well, I mean, like people who've listened to the show probably know because that's the only thing I ever recommend when I come on. But I really do enjoy that genre of things, right? And so Altered Carbon is a really interesting. So the premise is really interesting. It's also so gorgeously shot. It is like one of the most beautiful pieces of eye candy you can ever imagine. The essential idea behind the show is that it's set 300-400 years in the future, and humanity has evolved in such a way that we now download our brains into what's called a stack.
Okay.
That stack is inserted into your spinal cord, and then that is where your memories and all of your personality and stuff like that comes. The stack is something, and your body is called a sleeve. So you're born with a sleeve, but you can also get synthetic sleeves,
Okay.
which are not your own body, which can be clones of other people, which can be like, genetically modified kind of sleeves. So you get these different kinds of sleeves. So you can always take your stack and your sleeve can kind of be interchanged with each other, right? So that leads to a whole lot of stuff. You don't know who is who.
Oh.
Right, because when you're watching the show, it looks like, okay, this person should be this person, but no, actually it turns out that it's this person with this other person's stack inside him. And so that kind of is that's one of the interesting components that comes out of it. And the other thing that I think is one of the things that always fascinates me about science fiction, right, is science fiction keeps coming back to this theme of what is a soul, right? I mean, like you see that over and over again in a whole bunch of different places, right? I mean, like I think I'd like on the first episode of IVM Likes when I recommended Person of Interest, that time we were talking about what makes the soul of the machine that exists over there, and over here is a similar kind of thing. Is your soul your stack? Or is your soul your body and your entire thing that comes on? Because that stack is a mechanical thing.
That's right.
Right? So where does the soul exist? So it's a really kind of, it's an interesting meditation in that aspect. And it is kick-ass action and fantastically shot. And I mean, like, there's one particular action sequence which I just, so they have a fight, like it's like a fight club kind of thing, like a cage match.
Okay.
But the cage match is in zero gravity. And it is so fantastically shot. I mean, it's just one of the most beautiful things I've seen. So I think I could highly recommend it. And,
The future sounds amazing if you could do cage fighting in zero gravity. I'm looking forward to
So
that.
I saw a bit of the first episode, but from the promos, I was expecting something close to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But it's not that.
So
it's straight up.
Visually Blade Runner-esque.
Okay.
Right? Visually, it is very Blade Runner-esque in, like, the kind of, the urban dystopia,
Right.
the skyscrapers and the slums. And, like, from that perspective, it very much is Blade Runner-esque. But the story itself is very disconnected
Right.
from Blade Runner, right? Because Blade Runner is again about replicants and humans. And, it's a different kind of...
It's more in the noir kind of
it's more
space.
in the noir
Yeah.
space. But, again, Blade Runner is also one of those things which comes back to what is a soul, right? I mean, like, if you look about the original one, I haven't seen the new one that came out. But you think
You
about
should.
I know, I've heard that. I really do need to. But the original one that came out, like, I mean, like, towards the end, Rutger Hauer's character was entirely about that. But I am a person.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, like, just because I'm artificially constructed, I am still a person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's the same theme, right? I mean, like, thematically it's similar.
Yeah, it is.
But, it's visually very similar.
Okay.
But it's a... Blade Runners, noir is a good way to look at this, whereas this is much more like bang, 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 bang.
Right,
It's
exactly,
just much more fast-moving.
Okay. Cool.
I haven't seen it, but it also sounds like a one Black Mirror episode turned into a whole show. Because we do have this theme running throughout Black Mirror season 2. Remember, there was one episode which was totally dedicated to what if this person dies, but you can still text. Remember?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it. Oh shit! I did spoil it for you then.
That's okay. I think that should. That's all right.
Things don't turn out well in Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Is what I know.
Exactly. But is this only one season for?
It's
all
been
to
one.
come?
It just came out. I think it just came out in February or March.
Yeah.
So
God.
it's relatively recent.
I hope
That's
this show gives us closure because Black Mirror does not. They end on a very sad, surreal note,
Right.
and you just have to live with this now. Oh God!
No, I think that it is. I think most of these longer shows, they do have the kind of beginning, middle, and end, as opposed to Black Mirror, which kind of just leaves you with a question. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that you do there's a certain amount of resolution, but they also want to set up season 2, so there's a certain amount of season 2 set up as well.
You could check it out, guys. Altered Carbon. And I'd like to recommend some stand-ups, because Netflix has been obviously dropping a lot of stand-up in 2018.
Like there's one new every week.
And it's crazy. You can't keep up. But if you have no time, but you still want to watch a lot of comedy, you can check this out. This thing called The Stand-Ups. So they have like 2 seasons of that now. And basically what they try to do is get half-an-hour specials of different comedians and like basically get a lot of faces out. And it's amazing because like I feel like I would like to just recommend my favorite ones from those. Aparna Anchela is my favorite. But there's one new comic and his name is Joe List.
Okay.
And he's like style of comedy, super awkward, and it's just amazing. And I kind of want to recommend his YouTube channel also, because he does this thing which is called The Ultimate Warrior.
Okay.
Like it's a play on The Ultimate Warrior,
Right.
but he worries so much. So every time the guest walks in, so it's like a talk show, but the guest walks in and the first question he asks is like, "So are you mad at me? Is everything okay?" It is amazing. Check out this comic called Joe List and this entire lineup of
I saw the one
comedians.
with Dion Cole. I think it was in the first season.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
very funny. And Dion Cole is also a very funny comedian. He used to be a writer on Conan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and now he's doing full-time stand-up.
That's
So it's very
amazing.
funny.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen this one. I mean, like, I like a lot of the stand-up specials they do, though. I
Yeah.
mean, like, the full 1 hours that they do for people. Some of those are really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I take a 1 hour special takes me time. Like I keep like procrastinating. Like maybe I'll take a day off and then I'll watch.
Yeah.
Like Nanette, for example, everybody was talking about it, but I thought, no, this is like a weekend chore kind of thing. I need to take time out for this. So yeah, you can check out the stand-ups on Netflix. And just a quick recap, Abbas, what did you recommend?
The show One Day at a Time.
And
I recommended Altered Carbon.
And I recommended the stand-ups on Netflix. Check it out, and I'll see you after the break.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to listen to attempt number 15 to record the promo for the podcast Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
Varta Lab.
All day, all night, Varta Lab.
Oh yeah. It's a really nice podcast, guys. It's with me and Naveen, and it has really nice stories.
Yeah, people come tell their stories, ups and downs, fun times. We all cry at the end. It's like a Karan Johar movie, but in 1 hour or less.
Hey.
Yeah, every Monday. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to IVM Likes, and in the second half of the show, we are talking about the new Netflix original called Sacred Games.
Yes.
So we have a lot of opinions.
Yes, we do.
Let's
We should actually mention a couple of things up front. First is, if you haven't seen Sacred Games, we're going to spoil the hell out of it.
Yep.
That's
So, and if you haven't seen Sacred Games, I think there's something wrong with you as well. So, like, you should kind of take care of that part of things too. The other thing is, I just want to kind of put a little plug in. We had Kubra Seth come in, and she was on an episode of IVM Daily just a couple of days ago. You should definitely check that out. She speaks a little bit about her character that she plays, which was phenomenal.
Yep.
It's amazing.
So, yeah. So back to Surbhi. Please lead us.
Awesome. I feel like the first question I want to ask both of you is, what did you feel after you, just the last episode? What did your first
directly
feeling?
to the last episode.
Yeah. We're talking about feelings. The minute it ended, what were your feelings like, Abbas?
No, I think the entire show is constructed very much with keeping in mind that it's a binge-worthy show, because it's very well constructed, and you didn't feel like tuning out after an episode was done. You very much looked forward to what the next episode will be. So I think the finale was also done with that in mind, and they've set up season 2, and I'm very interested in that because I've read the book, and my favorite bit in the book comes after where the first season ended. So I'm actually looking forward to how they're going to handle.
Wow. So are you saying it's going to get better?
In the book, it definitely got a lot murkier
Nice.
and political. So I'm looking forward to how they handle that. But yeah, on the whole, I was expecting a good show, but I think it did exceed my expectations.
Yeah.
It was authentic. It was well written. It was the dialogues were really good. The characters were very well drawn out. The background score was really good. It was just I won't call it perfect, but it was pretty much near that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I loved it too. I thought it was just amazing, right? I thought, in some ways, I feel like it's like the coming out party for what we can actually do in India, and that was it. So I don't know if you guys know or if other people know. My actual undergraduate degree was in film, so I have like deep background in like film theory and all that bullshit, which people generally kind of spout. But this was a masterclass in that stuff.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, like if you look at the way the shots were framed up, if you look at the kind of things that, okay, so I mean, like take the two parts of the movie, right? You look at the Saif parts, which are set in the current day,
Right.
and you look at the Nawazuddin parts,
Yeah.
which are set in the past, right? They could be two different movies,
Right.
if you think about it, right? And two different, completely separate movies. But the way that he made these kind of things work together is very, very impressive, right? I mean, like the Saif movie is like kind of like a modern day political quasi comedy, but not exactly comedy.
Right.
Kind of this, it feels very kind of. I don't want to say light because there is some nasty shit that
Right,
goes down,
right.
but I mean, like it doesn't feel as intense
Right.
in some ways
Yeah.
as the Nawazuddin parts.
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
Nawazuddin parts are just like there's something happening and
Yeah.
some shit's gonna go down and people are really, I mean, like
Yeah.
it's just not gonna go
Yeah.
this, right? And you look at the color palettes, right? The entire Saif stuff is very washed out. Lots of blues, light blues, grays, those kinds of colors. You look at the Nawazuddin palette. Bright oranges and reds and yellows and like there's a lot of stuff like that. And again, this is kind of indicative of like the places where they're operating out of as well,
Right.
One is operating out of slums, one is operating out of like the antiseptic cop kind of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So I mean, like I really think that the way that they put this whole thing together is just phenomenal.
It's actually pretty cool. I also really enjoyed it, and I feel like it took me longer than other people to finish watching it, even though I did complete it in one day. But like because I used to I would pause and like Google shit up because like things were not like the scam, like they were talking about the whole the whole kerosene thing that was happening, like kids were burning, like setting themselves on fire.
Yeah.
Like the Bofors scam and everything.
yeah.
So I had to
Don't make me
like,
feel that old.
oh my god, I'm really sorry, but I had to Google things
God.
and to read up on Wikipedia about what this is.
Oh my God! The
Yeah.
Mandal Commission you had to read
Yeah,
up about.
I had to Google it.
Oh my
Mandal
God.
Commission is not from my day and age. I'm sorry, Amit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had to Google the Mandal Commission and a bunch of things. But yeah, I did have a great time watching it,
Right.
and my weekend was so fulfilling. Like I felt like I did some work. Like just
No, but taking off from your point, it was such a refreshing change to see a fictional TV show in India use authentic footage to set context, not mucking up, not trying to play it safe. They went for it,
That's
and they totally, they dug deep into it. Like the opening credits themselves have the whole Advani Rath Yatra happening. I mean, if this was on in a movie, a director would have to think 20 times.
Which is why I feel like Netflix is a great platform for such a show, because everybody, like the characters can cuss and like with abundance.
Yeah.
And there's so much vocabulary now.
So, do you guys? So, what's your opinion on that? I mean, like, I have a couple of thoughts around that, right? I mean, I love this. I mean, I absolutely loved it, right? But
Right.
if we're talking about, it critically, right? Do you think that there was a degree of cursing because we could?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Also, I felt like it just went with Gaitonde's persona. Like
Yeah.
he just had to, I don't know, like it felt like the full stop.
Right.
Like if he didn't say it, it just didn't feel complete.
Okay. Okay. So you don't think that, right? You think
Yeah.
that it was
I felt
natural?
Like it was natural. Yeah.
To me, it felt like, again, I mean, like, it felt like there was some degree of, we have the ability to do this because it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of push the boundaries further than the story sometimes dictates or demands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, like, still love the things. I mean, this is not like a negative in that sense. But, if we're talking about like 10 out of 10, this might make it like, 9.9995 out of 10. It's not
Right.
that much of an
I
issue.
get it,
But I mean,
yeah.
like, still, I felt that I did get a little bit of that feeling.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
think not so much with Gaitonde, but the subplots with his henchmen.
Exactly, yeah.
I thought were a little because I think whenever you curse excessively, it's like a crutch. You're taking the shortcut than writing a compelling line or a compelling dialogue. So I think with the subplots with his henchmen, I thought relied little too much on
I'm
the
sorry,
cuss
I
words.
feel like some of the cuss words were really compelling.
No, they were.
Can I mention one of my favorites that I want to use?
We might have to beat
Yeah.
this, but go for it. Let's try.
I
Let's
really
see.
want to use this in real life. So Paritosh and Nawazuddin, like the early episodes, they were really good friends.
Right.
And Nawazuddin has this line where they were such good friends कि हम इतने अच्छे दोस्त थे कि हम same गान ढकते थे. I want to use this in real life. It's really compelling. You cannot take this away from me. Yeah, but you have read the book, Abbas.
I did, yeah.
Tell us about the book.
So the one character it took some time for me to sort of be on board was actually Saif Ali Khan's character, because in the book Sartaj Singh isn't as much of an underdog as he's portrayed in the show. In the book he's of course being held down by his superiors, but he's still determined to do something.
Right.
I think it took some time for the show to get that aspect of him right. In the first 2 episodes, I think it seems like he's pretty much given up and he's not looking very determined about
So it took me 20 minutes to get into the show. It really did, because that, I the first initial part was great, right, which was the dog and all of that.
Right.
And then after that, they had a little bit of Gayatonde stuff. And then Saif's part started. That part dragged for me a little bit. I once that, but at the same time, you could see that Saif was really acting really, really well, which was, I think, like, I tweeted something which actually kind of got some response, which I normally don't get on Twitter, right? But this is the least Saif-like I've ever seen Saif be.
Right.
I mean, like, every time you see one of these Khan actors, right, they're always them. It's always them.
There's a bit of them in the role.
Everything, right? It's never like, they're never purely kind of this. In this case, I felt like Saif actually really subsumed himself in the role.
That's true.
And that kind of made it drag a little bit, I think, in the first 10-15 minutes of his appearance. But then after that, it just kind of like, you were watching the character. You weren't watching Saif at that point, which I thought was... I thought that was a danger about this. I mean, like, putting in a star like Saif in something like this over this much time, I thought there was a danger that, Saif, like, as a star, would kind of overpower the proceedings. But that didn't really happen.
Yeah. That's another good
one thing from the book that I'm glad they stuck with is that even in the book, Gayatonde's monologue happens after his death.
Yeah.
And they kind of stuck with it in the show. He's giving him Sartaj the monologue after he's died.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty cool, I think. Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, like, I really enjoyed that, but I mean, like, if you, so I've been reading some of the reviews and stuff like that, right around this, and some of the concerts, some of people's comments, and that is actually one of the things that, like, dude, what is this magical realism stuff, right? And this is mostly coming from Indian commentators, with the idea that, hey, listen, we don't need this, but I'm like, dude, that's the source.
Exactly.
So I mean, like, live with it, right? But I mean, like, that was a.
That's true. I also feel like the show, I mean, it's called Sacred Games, obviously, but it does highlight, like, our country's obsession with religion and everything. So, I mean, it starts off with the question, Bhagwan ne mante ho kya? So, what is your opinion on that? Like, where do you think India, like, is, because I feel like it's a great time to drop the show.
Right.
But what do you feel?
I thought the way they approached it was really interesting, right? I mean, like, and they talk about it, like, in all kinds of historical contexts as well. They talk about the Babri Masjid thing, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious when he was working at the Hindu hotel and put all the chicken bones in everybody's thing to kind of take revenge on his owner of that hotel. Yeah. And I mean, what was interesting was the way that it somewhat parallels the way the underworld actually played out, right? So I mean, like, in the sense, if you think about the 70s and 80s underworld of Bombay, and again, I'm not like a big underworld expert or something like that, but in the 70s and 80s, the underworld was relatively secular. It was all about making money.
Right.
I mean, like, it was gold smuggling, it was gambling, it was these kinds of things, right? In the early 90s, right, which is when the bomb blast happened in 93, that's the point in time where the underworld interaction started taking more of a communal flavor, both from a Hindu gang, Chota Rajan perspective, or from a Muslim gang, Dawood perspective, right? And I thought that was actually really interestingly tracked. I mean, like, because the Nawazuddin Siddiqui's character, right? I mean, like, he says that, right? Now I'm becoming a Hindu.
Yeah.
When
he awakened the Hindu inside.
Exactly, right? And I mean, like, that kind of you can see that as, like, parallel to how our underworld in this country kind of expanded and grew.
Yeah, I think for me it was a refreshing change, because I think, see, the post-independence history of India, it changed in 92 when the Babri Masjid came down, and I was 5 years old at that point of time, but that palpable fear, especially being a Muslim in a Muslim family, was always there, right? I think this is where I think it was great that Anurag Kashyap was directing this, because he did Black Friday. He has lived that era, and he wants to portray the fear and the uncomfortable feeling that people in Mumbai had at that point of time. And in the book, in fact, it takes a lot of time for that religiosity to come up. In the show, they've gone straight up ahead with it because there's no holding back. And again, I mean, if this was a show on normal Indian television or a movie, all of this would be cut out because you can't say this, you can't say that. So it's such a refreshing change to criticize religion, at the same time show how easy it is to fall prey to these godmen and to the idea of religion, right? So I was really impressed with that. I think that they went full on with the religious aspect. And again, I don't want to give much away, but it only gets murkier as the story goes along. So yeah, for me it was great. I love that part.
I feel like in a way the show kind of mirrors the reality we live in right now. I mean, especially the whole restaurant scene, like the food on your plate is still something.
And also little like the actress that they kidnpped, she plays a goddess on a TV. So there are those very subliminal messagliminal messaging in there. So pretty cool.
That's cool.
That was a nasty character, huh? That Punty guy.
Oh my god! Yeah, I was so glad. I was so glad when he died. I was like, this is nice. It had to happen.
Like a seriously nasty character. I mean, from every, like, there's nothing redeemable about that character.
That's true. But did you guys cry a little bit when Katekar died? And when his wife was, oh my god,
Yeah, because
I was shocked.
I was also shocked.
It was just like, wait, what? I mean, like, he's a sidekick. Sidekicks don't die.
Yeah.
And he was also the comic relief. And so in the early scenes, you see that woman in a burqa who keeps coming back to him and keeps shoving her away. But then there's a scene where he's like, okay, fine, file her FIR. So, deep down inside, there's that good guy within Katekar. And he's the one who's cracking all the jokes.
And he dies because of that. He decides that I'm going to be good.
I know.
And in chasing that being good, he dies, which is kind of tragic in its own way.
And that scene when Katekar and Sartaj are on the beach and he's like, why do we clean up the beach every day? It's going to get dirty. And he's like, but aaj to saaf hai na. And that just, oh my god. I did cry a little bit.
So. No, he was, so in many ways, I mean, like, Katekar was, I think, like, part of the heart of the show. Like, if you think of it, think of the two parts of it, right? I think that Katekar was part of the heart of the show from the modern perspective, and I think the Cuckoo character was kind of the heart of the show from the older flashback perspective, right?
That makes sense.
Because these were the two kind of who softened what was happening, who made it more than about the cops and robbers and the gangsters and the politics and that. These are the people who kind of like, infused some feeling into the show.
I also loved the fact that they let the Marathi be in and you had to read the subtitles. I think very authentic, which is cool.
Really, the subtitles didn't work for me.
What?
They didn't?
You know what? These guys do a weird thing on subtitles, right? So I like to watch almost everything with subtitles on.
Okay.
And whenever they're talking in another language, subtitles disappear. If I have the English language subtitles on, I have the Hindi language subtitles on.
Right.
So whenever they're talking in another language, where if you're watching without subtitles, you'll see the subtitles. Right? But if you're watching with subtitles, you don't see any of the subtitles.
Really?
What?
It's kind of aggravating.
But do you understand? You don't understand Marathi at all.
Enough to get by for what this was.
I mean, even I could understand, but just if I missed slight nuance, I just put it
I missed the Punjabi.
Punjabi is so good.
I guess you don't have a problem with that. But I was a little lost at sea. Marathi is something I hear all the time, right? So
people on Twitter were actually dissecting people, like the accents also, like if Saif did a good job with the Punjabi accent and if other characters.
I could only imagine Saif Ali Khan rehearsing his lines with Kareena Kapoor, the Punjabi lines.
So I'm the Punjabi in this studio, so I can make this joke.
So did you think Saif's Punjabi was good enough?
No, it wasn't great. Like I could tell that he's struggling with it. Like it felt like he's reading off something, but it was decent. Like you can get away with it.
What you got to consider, he's a Bombay kid, right? As a character as well, right? If you listen to my Gujarati, it ain't gonna sound like real Gujarati. I mean, like it's gonna sound, it's gonna sound very much like English mixed with Gujarati kind of. So I think like that might be part of the. I'm giving him too much credit, but it might have been.
So Surbhi, there have been some criticisms online about how the female characters in the show were a little underwritten. For example, Radhika Apte's character, the only thing you know about her background is that her father's missing. The role of Gaitonde's wife, she just suddenly appears out of nowhere and he takes a liking to her. So did you feel that way, or do you think it was cool?
I don't know. I don't remember thinking that way. But now, now that you're asking the question, I do feel like I know nothing about Radhika Apte, and also how struggle with sticking to the desk, and I feel like that kept coming up in the same dialogues. If they could just change it a little bit, it's like she was even when she was talking on the phone, she had the same argument. Oh, मैं desk में रहूँगी, तुम field में रहोगे.
Right.
And in real life also, she's like desk and field.
Right.
I mean, they could have changed it a little bit and give her basically where is she coming from?
Right.
What's up with the academy?
Yeah.
The whole academy.
I've got to ask this, right? So I thought Radhika Apte did a fantastic job, right? But I mean, related to the criticism about her wife, I mean, and I get that Radhika Apte probably her character might have was probably underwritten a little bit. Isn't essentially this is a show about Ganesh Gayatunde and Sartaj Singh?
Sure, but then we get the Bunty character as well. We get some background about Suleiman Isa as well, and then when you see Radhika
Apte,
smack
me down, I'm wrong.
So as compared to the male characters, they were a little underwritten. It would have been better. Again, Gayatunde's wife's character. Yeah. Where does she come from? What's her driving force to push Gayatunde
There was
ahead?
something weird. That was a strange
relationship.
Because you know what? The first time I saw that actress, right, or the character in that was when I think it was at the party which Cuckoo died at, right?
I think it's a little before that. He gets that illness, and you see her around the house.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's her first introduction.
Okay. But then she was spending a lot of time with the other older woman during that party scene.
Kantabai.
And Kantabai. And I was like, okay, is there gayness happening? I mean, is this are these gay characters?
Right.
But then clearly, no. It seemed a little kind of
she just appeared out of nowhere, and you just had to get used to her face. Okay, maybe she's another person now.
So it was a little kind of. Out of nowhere, and I didn't know what exactly was going on until I was like, okay, this other woman is gone, I'm gonna marry you. Come. That was
that was a little strange.
It was.
Some small touches by the writers that I'd like to mention is that, of course, the book was written, I think, in the late 90s or early 2000s, way before smartphones. So I think they used technology pretty well. Right. Also, there's a passing reference to Kartikar being a 26/11 survivor, which wasn't in the book, and they sort of wrote that in. So that was pretty cool.
It wasn't the book?
No, the book was written, I think, early 2000s, 2001 or 2002, so before the 26/11 attack. So there are those small touches that the writers...
Did the book do a good job of writing the female characters, or was it
Actually, no. So I don't really remember the Kantabai character being given that much importance.
Apparently, the Cuckoo character was not even a character.
Yeah, it was just a
She's
passing.
a composite kind of character to kind of...
some creative liberty, okay.
Yeah, so even in the book, it's primarily about Gayatunde and Sartaj and their henchmen and their police officers. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the underworld genre typically is kind of a male-dominated kind of genre. I mean, when you just look at the character counts and stuff like that. But nonetheless, I think Radhika Apte definitely we should
did a
have
good
more
job.
about.
Where is feminism when needed the most? In the underworld.
Hopefully in season 2.
Hopefully in season 2. Alright guys, that was it. And you can tell us your opinion, what you thought of this new Netflix original Sacred Games. And you can reach out to us on IVM Podcast on Twitter and on our Instagram. You can also talk to us personally.
Sure.
Amit?
I'm Doshi Amit on Twitter, and that's probably the best way to get me.
I'm at Abbas Moment on Twitter and Abbas Moment 88 on Instagram.
And I'm Surbhi. You can reach out to me on Twitter at @SmallTalkPolice. And that's it. See you on the next episode of IVM Likes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Long, long ago, not in Bethlehem, but in a place nearby, there was a wonderful birth of a huge show, which I like to call Cyrus Says. A show that encapsulates everything in human history, from the first Homo sapien to the last Homo sapien, who's traversed the entire world and then come back to India. This is a show which tells you everything about everything. If you want to know, avoid Google, come to us. It's called Cyrus Says. Get new episodes every Monday and Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. It's simple as A, B, oh God, what comes after that?